Oh, hey, welcome back, Wizard. Tell you what, let's go do some shooting before it starts snowing again. Today we'll be reviewing the Ballistic Engineering Accurized AR match trigger. Let's see if this guy can unseat that Rise 535 as my absolute favorite AR trigger. All right, let's get into it. Now, one of the main reasons I like the 535 so much from Rise is because it has that super clean break and that short reset that just makes it ridiculously easy to do fast follow-up shots. And I'm already super not excited about it. Somebody in the comment is going to tell me, oh, why don't you use a Gizzelle. And in reality, we've tested out a ton of their triggers at different shows and different events, and I've not been impressed at all. Certainly when you factor in their ridiculous prices compared to anybody else on the market. Like, look here, my PSA came with a Gizzelle Stage 2 trigger, and it has some of the worst trigger travel I've ever seen. If this is what you think a good trigger is, then you're probably not a trigger snob like me, and you're probably just buying your triggers based on the price. But for my fellow trigger snobs, I have a treat for you. Now, as I mentioned, the trigger we're looking at today is the Accurized AR match trigger from Ballistic Engineering. Oh, and I do want to note that they also make a core trigger that is just amazing. But Jason actually stole that one from me after our night vision class because he liked it so much. Now, before we get all wrapped up in triggers and just how crazy these are, let me take a second and tell you who Ballistic Engineering is. Ballistic Engineering was formed when they saw the market needed an innovation in triggers without the sky-high cost. They don't repackage old ideas, but instead they rebuilt the entire trigger design concept from the ground up. And at their current price point, have to believe they're taking that mission statement pretty seriously. Oh, I did want to say, if as we go you're interested in any of these triggers, I'll put a link in the description, and you can also use discount code TLDco to save even more off the price of these triggers. But let's go take the actual Accurized trigger out and put it on the table, look at it up close, then we'll test the break, and then we'll actually go out to the range and run it. So this is the Accurized trigger, and part of what makes this one so special is the adjustment of the trigger pull weight from a scant 2 pounds all the way up to kind of a mil-spec pull of 5 pounds. To adjust the weight, you just move the set screw clockwise to increase the weight or counterclockwise to lighten it. It's pretty rare when you find a company that lets you adjust the pull weight of an AR trigger. Actually, I think there are some, but they're like, I don't know, like $300. And now I did do a test, and the 2-pound pull weight was a bit light for me on my duty setup, but I can see how that will be absolutely ridiculous for like a competition AR setup. Now, looking at the housing, we see there's a full nickel boron coated hammer for easy cleaning, along with a clear anodized 6061 aluminum housing. And having that nickel boron treated hammer was super useful when doing our night vision class, combined with all the testing I've been doing for this trigger, and having the Sandman S on there with all the gas blowback and all the garbage inside the gun. It just made cleaning super easy. We also see a full flat face trigger with a tapered rear design. The finger pad portion retains the same width all the way down the trigger, so you don't lose surface area if your finger changes positions. And I found that really helps in getting a clean pull, regardless of where your finger's placed on the actual trigger itself. The odd taper point of the Rise 140 is something that always felt odd to me and would throw me off if my finger was on a lower portion of the trigger. Now, I did also mention the core trigger that's done by Ballistic Engineering, and Jason took that trigger from me, but I'm going to steal some of his thunder for a second. The core may be a better choice for those duty setups like mine, as it locks the trigger weight at 4 pounds and gives a more mil-spec feel with that same wildly crisp break and reset. I'll let Jason show you all that, but let's go test all the trigger pull weight and all the break and reset on the Accurized trigger. As we said, the pull weight is adjustable from 2 to 5 pounds. And as you can see, this is a single stage trigger with a single pull weight all the way through the break. I have mine set to just around 3 pounds. And if you're wondering, yes, it makes it stupid fast and easy to shoot. But did you catch that it has like 0 trigger creep? Well, let me show you what we're going to test and what each thing means. For example, trigger creep is how far the trigger goes until it hits the wall and then usually breaks. And now less creep is better, 0 is just about ideal, and mil-spec triggers usually have a ton of creep even on a single stage trigger. Then we have the break itself. This is how far the trigger travels backwards when it fires a shot. Then we have the trigger reset. This is how far forward the trigger has to travel to begin firing again. So then if you have a short break and a short reset, you can have this incredibly small overall trigger travel. But if you have like a bunch of trigger creep and then like a long break and then a super long reset, it just takes a lot more movement to fire that trigger quickly. And the reason I like the Rise 3.5 so much is because there's no creep and it has this super short break and reset. So let's see how the Accurized trigger does compared to the 5.35. Starting our test, we see there is this tiniest amount of creep. I don't know, I can almost see it on camera, but we're talking about a percentage of a millimeter. And yeah, if you're wondering, each one of those hashes is like 1 millimeter, and like all of the hashes together are like the size of my thumb. I'll say though, the creep is imperceivable and it just has this super clean break when the actual trigger falls backwards. Moving to the break, we see the trigger travel is about 1.3 millimeters. I don't know, let's watch that again. 1.4 millimeters? I can't tell. It's just an insanely short break with a follow-up reset of that same 1.3 to 1.4 millimeters. So then total trigger travel is like 2.6 to 2.8-ish millimeters from fire to reset. And I say 2.6 to 2.8 because I can't measure that small, to be honest. That's how small of a break and a reset it is. I'll also overlay some footage of the Rise 5.35 testing we did to get a comparison of how the Accurized trigger measures up. I'll say the Accurized trigger is just as crazy as the 5.35 and at a lower cost, and you can change the trigger pull weight. Along with having an amazingly crisp break and tactile reset on the Accurized trigger, that makes shooting this thing just super easy. Tell you what though, the proof's in the pudding. Let's just go shoot it and quit talking about it. Did you see that? Tearing through shots without a hiccup at all. I even did that cool fast shooting thing that one guy on Instagram does. And in case you're wondering, no, I don't normally shoot that fast. I won't lie to you. And I have to say that Ballistic Engineering is giving a pretty healthy middle finger to all the other trigger companies that have been ripping us off for years. But not you, LaRue. You are a true hero. Gizzelle can go eat it though. So then, what are my final thoughts? I just love the Ballistic Engineering Accurized trigger. The insanely short break and reset allowed me to just rip through shots. The trigger weight adjustment means I could heighten or lower the pull weight based on my use case also, making this a top pick if you're just looking to go as fast as you can with an AR match trigger. And for a competition like speed trigger, it's just wild. Now for my more duty focused NV setup, I may actually like the core trigger better or even the new Point Man trigger that he's actually working on right now. And as I said, if you're looking to purchase any of that lineup, make sure to use discount code TLDco, save yourself a little bit of money, and see if we can make some of those other trigger companies actually start innovating. I'm gonna go bug Ballistic Engineering for that new Point Man trigger. You guys hold tight for that review of the core trigger also. I wanna see what Jason says about it. But I hope this review of the Ballistic Engineering Accurized AR Match trigger was useful in your purchasing decisions. I wanna say thanks to all of our Patreon and YouTube members. You guys make it possible we can see all this stuff and test it out in night vision classes and go see all these cool things. And I wanna say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below what you think about this trigger and why you hate your Gizzelle. All right, everyone, bye. Gizzelle, 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 Gizzelle. But Mom, I want a Gizzelle trigger for Christmas. Go away. Oh, and because someone was gonna ask, this is the defense mechanism Nexus pullover, and no, I haven't shown it to you yet, but I will. Or maybe I already did by this point. Who knows?